Nigeria House Davos 2026.
Nigeria House is the first one here in Davos, but of course we've got very much a lot of investors who have been coming since yesterday, and I still see a lot here. So I think we should take it a bit to the global standards and market integrity. So Johnson, this is coming to you. I'm sure you already know this. Ladies and gentlemen, Christine Johnson, drawing on your experience with global commodity markets, how can Nigeria as a country structure its gas contracts and regulatory oversight to provide the institutional grade certainty required to attract massive infrastructural capital? And then what role does the market transparency play in making this project bankable for global lenders?
Absolute congratulations to organizers of today's event. But more importantly to all of those who participated in the launch of Nigeria's Davos House. Congratulations to you. Tremendous success. It's been a line outside the door every time I've tried to come in. So I know that it is quite popular here and very excited. I think there was rice, not quite jollof rice, but there was rice last night. So I'm hanging out because I think jollof rice is somewhere in the making. Yeah, somewhere it's coming, it's coming. I would hesitate to suggest that I know or anyone would know better than those who are on the ground, directly engaged in industry in Nigeria about how to help drive and develop innovation to bring technology and to bring investment. But one thing I will share, just from my perspective, as having served as a commissioner for the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission over the last several years through the September of last year, is that two really significant events really impacted global markets generally, particularly as we start to talk about gas and alternatives to fossil fuels. And that is the invasion of Ukraine and ultimately the pandemic. These two events were significant in a number of ways, and I'm sure for those who are deeply steeped in operating these businesses, watching the movement, the volatility of pricing, but also the response in terms of gas as a valuable global commodity, as something that really began to impact global market prices for not just the gas itself, but for any number of other asset classes. You all are standing on the fore once again in Nigeria of what will be global supply and what will be global pricing. I think there are a number of local and domestic issues that you all are navigating that are not unfamiliar or foreign to many outside of Nigeria. And so I want to acknowledge and give kudos to the thoughtfulness around building a sustainable future for financing, but also for industry, and particularly in the energy space. I want to also just highlight a couple of things that the U.S. government, at least under the Biden administration, but I actually think there's quite a significant appetite for this even under the current administration, have been deeply thoughtful about. And one of those things is sort of questions around sustainability, decarbonization, and the physical and transition risks associated with trying to identify alternatives in the energy space that really can, for the entire planet, lead us into the future. I'm thoughtful about the things that you all are describing, in part because it is critical, cutting edge, it is imperative, and it's not a surprise that you would be leading us in these discussions. I want to pause there because I want to leave lots of time for discussion, but also for Q&A. So I'll pause there unless I'm given other direction.
Thank you so much. What lessons can we borrow from other gas-led economics that have successfully executed this balance?
From there, but I want to take it a step back just for a minute, because you talked about just emissions, and I don't want us to not talk about it, because in the context of capital, what's happened in the last couple of decades is that capital itself is moving. So the kind of structures that were funded in the past are not working anymore. And we have to be careful not to be trying to put new wine into an old wineskin, essentially. We need to have a system that when we're presenting our project, we need to know that ESG is just not a box we're ticking. And we need to have a plan for CO2. It's not as big a push yet in Nigeria, but it's coming. Now, I can go beyond, get out of this treadmill essentially of saying, oh, we're just extracting resources and we're selling them. But then the flip side of that is the markets actually just want your primary resources. So we try and create a balance. So for example, if you look at the gas base that we have, we've dedicated about half of it to LNG.
I wanted to respond just a little bit to the earlier discussion.
Okay, take 2 minutes.
Okay, and only share this. During my time as a commissioner at the CFTC, I made it my business to go to Africa. That was something I believed strongly in. So over the course of my time, I spent time in Nairobi, I spent time in South Africa, I spent time in Zambia, I spent time in Ghana. I wanted to come to Nigeria. I was very much welcome. I'm hoping I get additional invitations. Specifically, I want to talk just now about the agricultural impact, because I spent lots of time on that in Zambia and lots of time having the conversations around that in Kenya, and really want to emphasize that you are sitting on a gold mine in so many ways. And I think the opportunities there are there are a multitude of opportunities. Part of it is understanding the science and technology that you can use to capture those opportunities, but they really are a basis for capital formation right where you are. So I just wanted to applaud that statement. And with that, I'm again just grateful to be here, but I applaud that statement.
So, I agree with you 100%. I think there are two critical things that would drive large-scale investments in the natural gas, domestic gas space. I think the first thing would be that you have to present your investment piece in a way that is, it's environmentally friendly, and so you must show technology that will help to abate some of the emissions that you have in the production process. And I think with that sort of presentation, that can be an incentive for capital. But the second thing, like we've all said here, is the market, right? The market just has to work. I will start by saying, first of all, that when we look at the backdrop here, we will notice that as a country, we were very clear when it comes to our targets, with regards to the need to achieve a $1 trillion economy by 2030. And if we just oppose that with the fact that over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen quite interesting development within our sector, and because we're speaking specific to energy, but bias for energy. But of course, like you rightly mentioned, I think today when I was just looking at the papers today, I saw something around the fact that even though there's been a lot of movement around the independents, acquiring new assets, there's still a concern around capital availability, ultimately to drive development of those assets. Because it's one thing to acquire, to operate, but it's another to optimize. Ultimately, find a way to derive as much value as you can derive from the upstream asset that we have. And so it then requires a whole lot of coordination. And like you rightly mentioned, a critical part of that would be on the regulatory standpoint. I think that the priority has to be to incentivize the upstream developers to develop the resources in a way that is efficient. Regarding what's the optimal gas pricing that comes into midstream and downstream. So I think that to enable us to accelerate the rate of gas utilization, we have to prioritize access to good gas. And it has to be something that the upstream players will work together with us and use technology as the underpinning solution for it.
Thank you so much. As if you knew I was going to throw my next question to Mr. Leko, knowing that he agreed to most of the points that he gave. Mr. Leko, Nigeria has declared a decade of gas. I mean, it's public out there, and then possesses the resource, demand, and the policy support. Can you please share with us what is still preventing capital and technology from scaling gas infrastructure at speed? And how do we fix this decisively? If you will share, please.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to echo Mr. Olakunle's comments about just congratulations on the establishment of Nigeria House, the inauguration. So it's a wonderful thing to have our own house, and here we are. Now, before I go and talk about what is preventing it, because it all kind of intertwines. You mentioned the idea of gas prices at $1 to 50 to 2. Actually, I agree with you. But then economics can be an issue, because obviously we're forced to produce on the upstream. We have to be able to make sure that we can make profits. So the way we've dealt with it within LECO, so we have about 12 TCF of gas resources. And what we realized we had to do, because we also created a company called Cambridge LNG. And it's only when we're looking from the perspective of our LNG company that we start to see the reality of what you're talking about.